Hi, everyone, and welcome to Career Radio. I'm your host, Nani Vazana, and my guest this week is Sissel Vera Pettersen, a Norwegian vocalist, saxophonist, and composer based in Trondheim. So we'll be doing long-distance call today. She's the artistic director of the Trondheim Voices, and she has toured worldwide with many musicians. Some are amounting to no other than Chicoria himself. Her band Equilibrium is one of my favorite trios in the jazz and experimental landscape. And actually, when I met her in the EJN conference, I wanted to hug her because I really liked her music. So Sissel does it all DIY, which means do it yourself. I'm going to interview her today about, methods and tricks and anything that she can give advice to young musicians, how to launch their international career on their own. So as you know, all work on this podcast is done voluntarily. And if you do make a donation, all the donations will go to help young musicians to get a proper education. So if you want to support us, and you should, because we do a lot of work for up and coming artists, please go to ydiymusic.com/donate and make your contribution. And the accounts start from €7 a month, and you can already help pay a third of a musician's income for, the tuition, study fee for a whole year if you choose for the lowest tier. And you could also send a direct PayPal transfer to paypal.me at Noam Vazana. So hey, Sissel, how are you doing? Welcome.
Hi, Noam. Good morning. I'm fine. And you?
Morning. I'm all right. A bit sleepy. Same here.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. It's been a while. What was the last time? Lisbon, I think, right?
Yeah, I think that was Lisbon, yes. You're right.
Too long.
Yeah.
This Corona thing fucked us up completely. I don't know about you, but I lost my entire tour. Almost 94% of the shows were canceled.
Yeah, it is a very special time in so many ways, not only technically with less traveling and less touring, but also I think creatively it affects us very much, and in different ways. But I have to say, for me, it has been also maybe a long weighted break in a way, from pressure and from, having to also feel that you have to produce all the time. And I think maybe that something good comes out of that also, that you, maybe for the first time ever, our generation kind of accepts that, okay, we have to take a break. We have to stop chasing, and I think that's something we kind of need also. And I've also experienced lately, being in concerts, again, finally, getting back to going to concerts and playing concerts.
Yeah.
I don't know how that is in Amsterdam, but here in Norway we have restrictions, but we can also play for a maximum of 200 people.
That's a lot. Here we have 100.
Yeah, depending on the size of the space, of course. But so it's But I've been, I'm 43 now, and I've been hearing so many extremely good concerts through my life, big stars that I've been, looking up to for so many years. And but I've been kind of coming back to, thinking, when was the most kind of profound moments I had as an audience. And that was actually back in high school, where I heard my teachers play, or I heard, some local band, or because I was so extremely open and so hungry and so I didn't have any. I didn't have any idea of anything of what I was supposed to hear or what I was just purely open. And I've been thinking, how can I find that state again? How can I find that place where I'm just myself, I just, open to receiving. And actually, after this drought of cultural input, live cultural input, I feel that again. So I went here in Trondheim to hear some concerts, and suddenly I felt, again, this pure openness and this pure joy of sharing live music in a moment with other people, and no need to kind of judge things or level things, or just feeling open to receive. And that is something good for me that has come out of all this, but it's also extremely tough and full of insecurities, but I think that has taken me back also to a state of receiving music and experiencing music, unfiltered again.
I'm happy that you say that, because I think it's quite difficult to go back to that place. I remember that when I was 21, I kind of stopped listening to music by choice. I thought, like, I'm not going to listen to music anymore because I am being influenced too much by other people's compositions. So when I was writing my own music, it was all of a sudden sounding like somebody else's song. And I made the conscious choice to stop listening to music. And it's a strange thing to say. Like, when I tell that to my musician friends, they're like, why do you do this? You're limiting yourself. But I was actually feeling like I was limiting myself before. And ever since I stopped listening to music on a constant basis, like I did at home before, I found that joy that you were talking about in the live performance back by listening to others. Because in a way, you overstimulate your music glands, I would call them, and perhaps they're overused. And then by taking a step back, you sometimes can reignite a feeling that was dormant for a while.
Yeah.
Is that something you're making music?
Can you repeat, please?
Is that something that you also feel when you make music?
Yeah, well, it's easy to... there's so many impulses, in our lives today, and it comes from every angle all the time, and it's so easy. It's both a positive and negative thing, It's so easy to find everything you're searching for all the time, and it makes us also maybe we have this restlessness of going for the next thing very fast. And
very artistic, I think.
Yeah, and I think, to me, it is. It's a balance, because of course we steal all the time as artists. No doubt about it, that we're always influenced by things we experience and hear, but it's also important to take time to really go within and not doubt that your own voice is the only voice you can express fully. Everything else you try to do. Excuse me?
You got to listen to it.
Yeah, and everything that you try to copy will only be a copy. So the only thing that can be 100% original from you is you, and to find a place where you trust in that, and that you trust that your own ideas and impulses are the most are valuable is so important, and that takes time maybe, and space also.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes me back to a quote that I really like from Oscar Wilde. He says, "Be yourself, because everybody else is already taken."
Yes, yeah. That's a good one. Yeah, but it's hard, of course, when you enter a conservatory. You're young, you're maybe 18, 19, 20 years old, and of course, a lot of finding your own voice is also about going through a lot of music to hear, and be influenced, and kind of find a string that resonates in you,
Yeah.
So
I remember improvised music for the first time, and my mind was blown. I said, yeah, they're composing in the moment. I want to do that. Yeah, I think that attracted me that jazz.
Yeah.
Well, you do everything on your own. I was wondering if you had any experience working with labels, or did you always release your music yourself?
No, I worked actually only with labels, but small labels. So of course you do a lot of stuff yourself as well. I never had my own label, but yeah, I have released music on lots of smaller labels, Norwegian labels, a Canadian label called Songlines. Yeah. Just, now our connection, it's a little bit hard for me to hear what you say.
Oh, so really?
I'll try. Can you repeat the question once?
Let me just reorganize the microphone for you. Maybe it will be easier.
Yeah.
So how is this? Do you hear me better now?
I hear you. I think it's something with the connection that we're a little bit in delay. So that's why when I speak, yeah.
Okay. All right. So I was wondering your experience working with labels. Maybe you can share some of the experience, what it is as a DIY artist to work with a label and do a lot of things on your own because it's a small label. And then you were talking about Songlines label, and I was asking if it was connected to Songlines magazine.
No, it is not. No, it's an independent label based in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, but they do quite a lot of press, and that's maybe the. Well, I think I have kind of strong opinions on both. The visual, also the visual package.
Yes,
and it's also it's good to that to work with someone that's open to that, and to have a communication around that also. And I think you have to kind of single out what is it that you're not really good at, and that you can't kind of spend time on. So, for example, the thing with sending out demos to press, for example, or to take that package. That I've been lucky to work with labels who did that. So for me, working with labels, it's been mostly about being very, very free to take all the artistic decisions myself and with the bands, so that you more or less deliver a very complete and finished package, and then they release it. So I've never been in that world where you have someone telling you what you should do, or So that's the positive thing on being on the smaller and also, but of course it's sometimes it's also hard to to not drown in all the in the amount of releases, and to get some attention around the music you release. It's not always easy, and it's also for me, I kind of grew up also in a time before all the streaming services and everything, so I'm still kind of connected to the physical product of a CD or LP.
Yes.
And I think times have changed in when it comes to the online life of things, where I have to admit that I can't really follow anymore. I can't really do all that a lot of people spend a lot of time on this promotion online, and there I think I just have to kind of realize that I can't spend too much time on that. I need to spend time on my music instead, and hope, that it's gonna live a life.
Well, but you do a lot. I mean, like we did meet at the Europe Jazz Conference, so you do try to bring music to the attention of, let's say, fellow programmers, because you also do some programming yourself. So it's not like you're sitting down, laid back, and not doing anything.
No.
I mean, maybe you're being modest, but I think you do a lot to promote your music. Maybe not so much with a digital presence, but it is you. I think you focus more on the live aspect, so you try to get as many live gigs as possible. And I recognize that with myself as well, because until the Corona pandemic started, I was also, I think, only focused on the live aspect of music making. Well, I was making albums as well, but I was mainly having gigs. I booked a lot of gigs. I was playing about 100, 120 times per year, and I loved that, and I wanted to do that more and more. And since the pandemic started and my tour got canceled, so I had 88 concerts planned, and 83 of them got canceled. That's when I had to stop for a second and think, oh, what can I do digitally? So I started creating a more wider scope of work digitally, and also communicating with the people who like my music on a more regular basis that I didn't do before. So did you feel that the Corona impacted any of your work in that sense? Did you have the notion that you needed to go more digital, or did you go and dive into working in the studio and then making more music? What was your reaction to the crisis?
I think it's a combination of the two, actually, because, first for me, I just went on, what's it called in English, saving mode, I just a lot of my colleagues told me the same, that we were, in a way, it all felt everything was just so, hard to grasp, because we didn't know how would this develop, how long is it going to last. I mean, I realized that a lot of my creative projects are also driven by deadlines. That you will have this concert or this tour, and then you work towards that, and suddenly everything was canceled, and everything was also, we don't really know when we can set up a new tour, and if we do, we don't really know either if it's gonna be possible to go through with it. And again, I think also this state of some sort of anxiety, in all, because everything is just so ungraspable. So first of all, for me, I was just, basically doing nothing. And after a while, I stopped feeling guilty about that, and also just accepting it, and seeing also seeing that that's valuable for me in some way, because I've never done that before. I've always been so busy with all kinds of projects, and suddenly now to just wind down and stop and just, wait.
But do you really feel that you have stopped? Because for me, it's I feel like I'm working harder.
Yeah, but I think also, after a while, I felt like I wanted to go back to start just actually practicing again my saxophone, or playing, being together with myself in my studio, and just, playing and diving into that, because that has also been so kind of pushed ahead of me all the time, because I just needed to do that project or that project, and just going in and just say, okay, there's nothing happening now in the next 6 months, so I can just go and practice my craft. That was, in a way, really, really, that felt really good. But then after a while, we started, especially with the Trondheim Voices, we started thinking of alternative ways of still. One thing is performing, or sharing your music, but also another thing is producing, being in a creative process together without the possibility of meeting. I mean, these are singers who live all around Norway,
like
you know.
Yeah.
So we found ways of actually rehearsing online. We tried some new developed radio communication equipment actually that made us able to sing in real time, even though we were in Oslo and Trondheim and in different locations.
Wow.
So
Can you send me some information
yes,
about
I will do. This is developed in Norway, in Trondheim.
Great.
It's a company called Radio Nord, and they have developed this equipment, and they are constantly developing it. So this is one thing. Another thing was that we, instead of, because normally we would meet and work together, but then we started to work, at home, and we would send each other recordings of stuff. We would work on a new piece together, recording, and then the composer, he would put everything together so that we eventually had the whole file with 9 voices, or
Great.
And this was very interesting because it's all very much based on the improvisation. In Trondheim Voices, we that's kind of the main thing, is that we're all improvising singers. And it was very interesting to see, what came out of a composed song, but with a lot of improvisation in it, was very different when we had been in separate rooms doing our stuff than when we are in the same room. Although we're in the same room, we are very focused on keeping the individual voices and the individual expressions and stuff. It's something else, because we will subconsciously maybe also adjust in ways to each other, so that our output will be colored, of course, by being in the same room. But it was really interesting to see, It kind of gave birth to a new way of thinking around these creative processes, which was really good for us, and it also opened up the idea of continuing working like that, so that we can we can plan rehearsals and projects kind of no matter what the situation will be like in another 4 or 5 months. We know that we can do this because we already tried it. So, but of course also it affects also our planning, now we were supposed to be in Australia to do a residency and do 10 performances in Melbourne Festival. Everything is cancelled, of course. Great. And everything is also, we were supposed to maybe go there next year. Now they decided to have no artists coming from abroad, because they don't dare to start planning on that. And the same way we are next year, they made the decision. Yeah, they did, and I can understand that, because it's such a big festival, very, very expensive project, and for them to start, and it's in a way, it's like with us, we have it's so long processing for some of these projects. So now we've been thinking much more like, okay, to work with people that we're sure we can meet, or at least that we can, that won't come from abroad, and to do more touring locally, to do projects which will be outdoors, which will be, concerts which will be, how do you say it in English? Concerts where we bring the audience to a forest, for example, outdoor concerts, and we have a group of people, and we will guide them through a forest, and there will be stations with different sounds, and to think of ways of how we can find ways of involving audiences without having to think about distance or amount of people or all this, to kind of use this as tools instead. And that opens up to new ways of thinking also, and new creative processes, which is of course a bit challenging, but also in the end, it might kind of give birth to something which is really a good thing also.
Yeah. But the only thing that I'm thinking of is that might be limiting as far as the seasons. You could do a lot of things in the summer, but especially in Europe, where the winter is difficult. Sometimes it drops below 20, minus 20 degrees. You can't really do a lot outside. So you are quite limited to performing your artistry in a certain period of the year.
Yes.
So maybe tours will become summer bound.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, again, now it feels like we don't know, we don't know if it's, we just have to kind of try to find ways of keeping the wheels turning and I mean, we can't stop planning either, but it feels a bit difficult when we don't know, how things are going to look in half a year. And it's also, I'm also I work also in the board of it's the national jazz scene here in Norway. There's it's a club called Victoria in Oslo. It's a great club with a great program, and now it's so hard to find ways, of the artists coming from Europe, coming from the States, of course. We would like to make plans, but there's also how many audience can fit in, what do we do if they can't travel, is it going to be who's responsible for what, can they play 2 concerts in one day so that we can actually have amounts of people in that would make sense economically. And there's so many, it's really hard on both sides.
And you don't really know, of course, if travel will be possible. And
no.
I was asked several times already to play twice or thrice in the same day. And I think it makes it very difficult because until now, I was pricing the fee for my band per performance. So that's what they're used to. So now I'm telling them we have 2 performances per day. So they say, well, okay, so we get paid twice. It's like, well, actually, we're only getting paid 50% because they can't have the same amount of people. So then this adjustment is quite difficult, I think, for all of us. We have to find out new ways to still make money.
Absolutely, and we have to cooperate, we have to really find ways to see, how both as artists and arrangers or organizers, how can we sail this ship to the other side together, because it's so hard in all the different levels of this, We did a festival. It's a beautiful festival in Trondheim called Olavsfestdagene. They actually decided quite early to only do online or films of concerts, and that actually ended up really as a really wonderful thing. A lot of people watched it, and they put a lot of energy into the productions of the concerts, filming them, and that was a really, really positive thing to experience, because I think a lot of people, maybe also a lot of people which wouldn't go to the live performance, actually saw it online, But there has been also so much of this, streamed concert. So it's kind of, it's also a little bit like you felt it's just drowning you. So and it's a hard balance also, I really like the live streams that are very kind of thought through, and well produced, to kind of really think how you can get the max out of that medium. But it's
not easy.
No, and it's also hard because, of course, it could never be compared to being in a room and feeling, being in the same room as and hearing the music and seeing people live. So but we just have to keep exploring and finding ways to let this to let art live, because that's also such an important thing in these times, and here in Norway,
why I started this podcast. to continue the conversation around what we do in the industry and as colleagues, because we don't get to meet each other, of course, in the conferences more, but also when we met each other in the past during the conferences, we usually only had 10 to 15 minutes to talk to each other. And now, by creating a space for an in-depth interview, I feel like I'm trying to give an opportunity for real discussion to form on really important subjects within the music industry. And then maybe in this way we could evoke more affirmative action and projects or even work groups towards certain goals. Even though we are far away, we can still feel connected, and then maybe even try to find better ways to improve the industry.
Yeah, you know, it's a little bit, you know, it's very, it's both sad and provoking to see, you know, how, you know, concert halls are empty, planes are full, buses, trains, you know, out, you know, I could go out in Trondheim and there will be lines of people. Everyone is, you know, just mashed together drinking, and then you go to a concert hall and, I mean, this is, I would wish that, you know, that there would be more focus on and more just the pure health benefits of art, you know, and culture, and to see the importance of that, especially in times like this also, and to be willing to find systems for especially live performances to have a larger audience, because you could, I mean, there would be so many ways of controlling, you know, people getting in and out, and have a name attached to each seat, and, you know, people could wear masks and I was in a beautiful performance, a theater performance just some days ago, and you know, there was like 2 seats empty, 1 seat with a person, 2 seats empty, 1 seat with a person on every second row, you know, and I was thinking, this doesn't make sense when you see how people go in and out of buses all day in the same city. And, you know, I mean, we have to also, and I think, you know, we have to kind of focus on the
supermarket without a mask.
Yeah. And to, you know, to really put focus on, this is for public health, you know. People have to be able to go and experience and share culture and art. It's
This is something we don't pay attention to, I think, normally, because art is considered something you do after you do all the rest. So after you spent money on clothing and accommodation, this is when you start looking at entertainment. And I think art isn't really entertaining. I mean, like, there's some of it is entertaining, but can you imagine going through quarantine without reading books, watching films, and listening to music? People will go nuts. It's not only about entertainment, it's also about medicine for the soul. You need that.
It is.
It's about reflection.
You know, so, absolutely. I think
when you're listening to something, sorry, you were saying.
No, I think, you know, art and culture, we're a little bit delayed. That's why we get this, but hope people can bear with that. but you know, I think, how do you say this in English? In Norwegian, we have a word called bindemiddel. It's what kind of ties everything together, you know? Everything that we can measure and see, and everything that's concrete is kind of, to me, the thing that kind of glues it together is the magic, you know, the art and culture and poetry. Binding aid, exactly. That's what So and we need to shout out about that, you know, because that, I think that's the only way to have it prioritized, because unless it's going to be seen by politicians and, you know, a lot of, it's because it's not, you know, it's not something that generates in the first hand the amount of money that maybe could, you know, but when you see the long-term effects and you see how important it is in society, that's exactly the numbers. You know, you can start, you can I wish we could have more focus on that, because it's so, to me, it's so obvious, and it's just sometimes hard to measure.
Maybe the argument we need to address is, you either invest in art or going to spend probably 50 times more on public health insurance, because they're going to be mentally ill.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I once did this workshop about nonviolence communication, and the guy was talking about a job that he got hired to do, and he was supposed to talk to the prime minister in China, and it was about tuna fishing, and they went with the whole crew, and he started the conversation with the prime minister and said, well, listen, if you don't stop fishing now, in 2 years there will be no tuna fish left in the sea. So then the prime minister says to him, well, what do you want me to do? I have 6 million people working as fishermen. If I will stop the fishing, they will be out of the job. How do I? So then he went home to think about it, and then he made another meeting. I don't know, a few months later, they came again, and then the new argument was, in 2 years you will have 6 million people unemployed. And then it got him thinking. It's like, it's not that there won't be any fish anymore. You're going to have 6 million unemployed people. How are you going to address that? And then they started thinking about an action plan on how to stop the inappropriate fishing in the area. So I think sometimes it's a lot about semantics, about how we present our idea to other people. Because when you say, you do this and this is bad, it's not very communicative. And so, well, listen, I foresee a problem in the future. If we continue behaving this way, maybe that's a better way to communicate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If we're already talking about violence in that sense, I think one of the biggest issues of the music industry is gender balance. I don't know if you saw one of the talks on this podcast with Vanessa Reed. So she's the Key Change initiative leader and founder.
Okay.
And now she's also the CEO of New Music in the US. Yeah, you should check her out. It's really awesome. So she started to help festivals grow their gender balance to 50%. And then they get tools on how to do this, coaching, some grants. It's supported by the PRS. So there's a lot of movement already done in that field. And sometimes I think that we kind of, we already solved a lot of the problems that we used to have. Like when I went to my first trade fair, like let's say 8 or 9 years ago, like people would introduce themselves in a group and they would just skip me because they would just pin me as someone's girlfriend, point of view. And it's like, I would have to say, hey, no, I'm also a musician. I play trombone. What do you do? Now this seems to be a little bit less, but I think there are also future challenges. So what do you think the current challenges of the music industry are in regards to gender balance?
Well, I feel that, to me, it's more natural now, where we are, at least here in Norway, to focus on the positive things, because there's a lot of positive. It's everything is going quite well, I think, in that aspect here. I've kind of lived through a very changing times. When I started in the conservatory in Trondheim, that was in the late 90s, I was the second female instrumentalist ever studying there. I was, in the jazz department, obviously. In the classical department, there was of course a lot of female instrumentalists, but it was, I was a saxophone player, and there was a piano player. Her name is Maria Kannegård. She was the first one a couple of years before. And I was almost, always asked the question, how does it feel to be a female instrumentalist? And in the first years, I was like, what do you mean? Because I never thought about that. I just play, and I just want to play. And so I wasn't, that wasn't a thing for me until I started in the conservatory. When I was a kid, didn't see any, it was the most natural thing for me to want to play that saxophone.
It's very lucky. I don't have the same experience.
Yeah.
I get a lot of commentary.
Yeah.
Why?
But the interesting thing was, in a way, that, the people that really kind of just felt that they wanted to kind of support me, maybe, and also just, to be interested in that in a positive way, they were the ones who kind of made me very self-aware about it. And suddenly it became an issue in a way, And I could also in some moments in that period of my life start to wonder, okay, would people hear me differently if I played with a mask, or is my music judged in some way because I am a woman, and it made me in a moment, or in a period in my life, it made me a little bit, insecure. And I didn't have anyone to really share it with, because there wasn't any other female instrumentalists that I could talk about it with,
Yeah.
But I also talked a lot about these insecurities with my male musician friends. And when I started opening up about that, of course, they would tell me about a lot of similar insecurities in their, musicianship. So it's also a lot about, sharing maybe these energies that maybe in a certain society, it could kind of be, a little bit, not so many openings of being vulnerable and being, being open about your insecurities, and I think to me, music is a lot about that, to be vulnerable. Being open is connected to being vulnerable. So, but I think during the last, so then, then there was a period, in the around, I guess around 2010, 2005, 2010, where there was a lot of focus on, lifting female instrumentalists in jazz and improvised music in Norway. And there were...
In Norway or generally?
Sorry?
In Norway or generally?
Well, I think in Norway and Scandinavia, maybe this was happening this was very strong, and maybe a little bit ahead. I don't know. I have the idea that this was happening here a little bit before. This was way before Me Too, or yeah. And this was also
the rest of Europe is only in the last 2 years.
Yeah. I have the same impression. But the thing was, this is also a little bit, it's not an easy thing, because, as a female musician, when you're suddenly surrounded by, okay, there's suddenly clubs will have kind of, there will be, having to take in 40% female band leaders, or, I mean, it was also a kind of sensitive, a little bit hard to navigate in that, because you would also in that be very, very kind of self-aware, like, shit, am I getting this gig only because I'm a female saxophonist, or is it? And there was a little space of time where that could actually feel that it was almost a negative thing as a woman, but then you could see the effects from it. And then I'm in no doubt that this kind of this focus and this lift that had to be done through this kind of system was extremely important and good, because suddenly
you were taking out the environment, the jazz environment was kind of taken out of this automatic way of thinking, you know, okay, I want this guy and this guy, and he and suddenly, you know, there was this the group of female musicians that got this space that they might not have had, or that they might not have it, at least it would have taken more time. Sorry?
Sorry, I lost you.
No, you know, it's at least, you know, I could see that suddenly there was more attention to female instrumentalists and they were given more space, which maybe in the environment that we had wasn't so easy for them to just take, you know. And then suddenly that also made other female musicians I don't, you know, just inspired young girls to start playing, and suddenly also you see that there's a lot, there's not this, well, it's of course it's been extremely positive both for women and men, because it opens up a whole, you know, so much more possibilities to also form bands and thinking out of this, you know, the box that you maybe had been thinking out of before. And I was thinking about it when I was playing in a festival in Molde, jazz festival in Norway. And then this is many years ago, and then I came down, you know, in the breakfast, and then I could see so many female musicians, and they were all people that I, you know, so great musicians that I really looked up to. But it was the first year that, you know, it was, you know, just as many women as men in the program. And I talked to the programmer about it, and he said, you know, this was not because I was thinking out of a quota or something. This was because these were the musicians I really wanted to have in my festivals. And suddenly, when my program was done, I saw, wow, we're up on 45-50% female musicians.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it has worked, you know?
Yeah. I think sometimes you have to program things into existence, and then they become natural later on, because like you say, this kind of notion was not available before, and especially for people who were playing into the field of the people that they already know. I think this is the biggest thing of opening the especially the jazz world to female presence, band leaders at least, and instrumentalists for first and foremost, is it forced the programmers to listen to a bigger array of musicians. So basically, instead of, because in the past, in the last 10 years, you've just been seeing the same artists being booked again and again and again on all European stages. And now, for the last 2 years, all of a sudden, there are a lot of new names, whether they're female or not. The notion of opening yourself to listening to more artists has also improved the scope of programming in general. So more people are given opportunities, and also the minds of the programmers are becoming more innovative and more communicative to the audience. And I feel that there are also a lot more audience development initiatives that there has been in the past.
Yeah. And also, I can sense that, you know, now in the Norwegian conservatories, for example, there are a lot more female jazz instrumentalists, and I sense that there is a very it's very present, the idea of, you know, being respected and taking your natural space, but also really standing up for each other. But I also feel that when I teach, for example, in the conservatory in Trondheim, I feel that the guys are also extremely aware of this, and it feels really, you know, healthy that you can, they're so, you know, it's been, you know, this feminist movement, which is about also connecting to the feminine energies, or you know, and to stand to see this, and, you know, if you see this imbalance or this, you know, abuse of power, or everyone speaks up immediately, and this is it is and stands up for each other and supports each other. And I think it feels I think it also feels really good to those young men.
Mm-hmm. It makes, and I'm happy to hear they're open, because here I think we're still struggling with this. Like, for instance, if you look at the In Jazz programming, it's a showcase festival here in Rotterdam. And 2 years ago, I posted on Facebook a photo of the jury. And I was really shocked to see the photo, because there were 9 people there, and they were all white male above the age of 50. All of them. And nobody said anything. And I remember I reacted under the photo, saying, like, guys, don't you think there's something weird about the photo? Don't you see there are, like, the Netherlands have 183 nationalities. It's more diverse than America. Do you think that it's okay not to have a diverse jury? Not only male and female, but also like ethnicities and other cultures. They should affect your programming. And then when they started reacting to my comment, then 50 people wrote after that, because people were waiting for somebody to say something. So until then, everybody was, oh, wonderful, great, blah, blah, blah. But once I posted that, it seemed to me that it encouraged other people to say something. And there was a whole discussion about this. A year later, they started a new law, like a rule in the jury, that they have to have a minimum of 1 woman. So it's not yet there. We're not yet at 50-50, but at least there is some awareness going towards the idea of having a diverse programming jury might affect a diverse program. Because that doesn't relate either. They think, like, I think a lot of jury members think we have a great musical taste and we will let this dictate what we book. But I think your cultural upbringing also dictates what you book, not only your
absolutely
opinion.
Yeah.
So, and if you're not exposed to certain things, you won't book them.
And there is so much automation in these environments. It's just been going on that way, and it's so good for everyone to have the systems shaken, and it can only benefit in every aspect, but it's for some people it's hard to see that, of course. And it's also about clinging to positions and wanting things to stay as they have been, but at least luckily in Norway I can see that everyone is it's vital. Everyone can see, it seems like, that it's vitalizing the systems.
I'm happy to hear that. Circling back to what you said before, that your music and your work was driven by deadlines before, and now that you feel that there is no hook or an anchor to keep you motivated, what kind of advice can you give musicians that are going through the same difficulty on both sides? So let's say when you have a lot to do, how do you keep up with your schedule? What kind of tricks do you have for making a good list, or keeping with the deadline? On the other hand, what do you do when you have no deadlines and you're unmotivated to do anything? So how do you handle this contrast?
Well, this is a hard balance, because of course it's about, like you say, when you have too many things to do, you have to keep your calm. When you have nothing to do, you have to kind of keep your energy on a certain level, And this is, I think, for me, this is maybe one of the biggest challenges of being an independent musician, because it's also so connected to where you are in your life and what how you feel like, and it's. I wish I could tell you some magic tricks, and I wish I could, say I have this system and this works for me, and unfortunately I don't. you know, I try to keep a balance of working hard, but also, you know, being actually good at also putting the work down, taking breaks, and also finding out, you know, why am I doing what I'm doing? You know, what is actually the main, what's the core of why do I need to do this so much, you know? Because a lot of the time it's kind of, I find that, you know, maybe too often I end up in a place where it's kind of anxiety driven. You're thinking about the outcome, you know, this is going to be such a great blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And you can be a little paralyzed in that process, you know, because you're afraid that it won't be as good as you, or, you know, but also then thinking, okay, why am I doing it? And especially in these times, it's been very clear to me, you know, that as musicians, we have this we have this magic language, you know, that we can share with people, and the importance of that to what we can actually give out, the energy we can give out in this world where so much is just driven by, it's just, you know, there's money, you know. And of course, this is also important for us to survive. But, you know, it's also sometimes I need to kind of wind back and think, okay, you can actually bring something into the world which is, you know, which can't be measured in you know, and to try to find that place in myself where I, you know, as when I was a kid, I would always just dive down in all these creative processes without the idea of what the outcome would be. It would be, you know, just because I would, you know, enjoy so much to be in that process of creating something. And I find that when I get to that place, if I can, you know, not be so focused on the outcome, that's when I'm when I'm most true to the music within me, you know, and then that kind of gives maybe the best result in a way. But of course, it's also, you know, the world is also, it gives you deadlines, and it gives you all, I mean, you know, these processes which are so stressed, and but I find that, you know, when you start thinking too much about how it's going to be, then it kind of stiffens a little bit, you know. So if it's possible to try to find this balance between, of course, a structure and keeping, you know, the deadlines and stuff, but also just, you know, being in touch with the magic, you know. And that could also be just as well for me now. I'm speaking only from my own perspective, but that could also be walking to the sea and look at you know, being in nature, breathing, being in a forest, you know, giving space, you know, we live in a time where it's so hard for us to have long chains of thoughts, you know, without interruptions. And when it comes to being creative,
is dropping.
Yes, and also when it comes to being creative, you know, being in creative processes, giving yourself space to have those, you know, being in a process without interruptions for a certain amount of time, to find that. I mean, for me, it could be going on some kind of residency, for example, just going away from all this everyday noise, you know, and being that gets rarer and rarer, I think, to find those places. And to me, the times where I did that has been extremely rewarding creatively, because, you know, when you dive into something for real and zoom into it, and over time, it's amazing how much you could do, in let's say a week
I love
away.
redundancies in that. Yeah,
because everything.
I used to do that a lot, like once a year. Get away from all the distractions, go and write for 1 week or 10 days. And the last 3 years, I haven't done it. I don't have time.
No.
But I did manage to find the time to write in between. So now, if I would go to residency, then I would write 20 songs or 20 pieces in that for the 10 days. But now I'm writing one song per 2 weeks or one song per 3 weeks or something like that. So just at home here on the piano. And well, I can't imagine that there really is a trick or a magic solution to deal with the stress, or the other way around when you're unmotivated. But I have this course for DIY musicians, so that teaches them a few tools, let's say, how to launch their own career on their own. And one of the things we do in the course is time management. And then I tell about a few tricks that I do. Like, for instance, if I have a very long list of tasks, it stresses me out. So I don't want to have a long list. So what I do is I divide it into small lists, and then I prioritize them. So the things that really have to happen in the next few days, and then the things that are more in the next few weeks, and things that are just in the background in the long run. Then I prioritize them and I go by these lists. And then I put these lists on a draft email instead of like on a paper or something that I would have to scratch off. I won't cross off a thing. I would remove it entirely from the file. So once I've completed a task, I will remove it from the list, and then the list will look cleaner. So for me, that helps to cope with volume of the tasks that I have to do. And another thing that I do is I only give myself one big task per day. So if I have to write an offer, or to apply to a festival, or balance a budget, or do something that takes a lot of work, then I will not schedule 2 or 3 of these jobs in one day. I would spread them out throughout the week. And then I would attend to other smaller tasks after I've finished the bigger task for that day. Yeah. So I would actually plan in my calendar in that way.
Yeah.
So do you have any practical tip like that?
Well, I have very much the same system, to be honest, and that works for me as well. Right. I go with the combination of all these small papers everywhere with but now I've also started. I use my notes in my laptop, and I also but I have this thing of also, instead of removing what I did. What I've done, I would make them red or something, so that I can actually see, I actually did that, because that also gives me makes me believe that I can actually, get stuff done. And sometimes it's also good to just see, okay, wow, I got that done, But it's very much about, like you say, to tidy mentally, that, because it can be so paralyzing with all the stuff you need to do all the time, all the things you have to think about as an independent artist there, and so much of it has nothing to do with making your art or making music, and that's
I think 85% of my work is not related to art, really.
No. Yeah. And that's
something that musicians don't understand also.
Yes. But I think also, I'm wondering if this is something, what does it do to our music, or to your art as an artist, that you have to deal with all this stuff all the time? And I think in a way we tend to think that, it's great that we can do it, but we also, it's a weird time to live in, that you can do everything yourself, and so you have to deal with it and you have to spend time on it. But I also think that sometimes I tend to overrule the fact, or I tend to prioritize sometimes that there's all this business stuff that I need to do, and I'd actually prioritize that in front of practicing my instrument or composing, because there is this kind of feeling of reward, you know, that you might get that answer with this from this booker, or you might, you know, it feeds your it feeds you in a different way. And that's maybe also why, you know, sometimes you start your day doing that instead of doing your craft, you know. And that's something I've found that's very good for me, is to start the day with my music, you know. So start the day playing your instrument or singing or composing, and then you can do what, if you spend 2 hours on that, and then you can do all the other stuff, you know, because all the other stuff will kind of eat up, you know. So if you start doing all that other stuff, it will end up, oh, there wasn't any time to make music today, you know. But if you have made music, it makes you also so much more content, and it makes you feel that you were in touch with your craft, you know, or touch with your music. And I think it makes me go to bed as a happier person if I was in touch with the music every day. And there's too many of these days where you just started out, oh, I need to answer this email, I need to do this thing with my press, blah blah blah, and then you end up having spent all your day in front of the computer. And I think it's important for us also to kind of get back to thinking, why am I here in the first place? It's because I really have a passion for music. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, you know. And what am I doing, you know? And I think it doesn't make you less productive in all the other stuff, you know. It doesn't make you, it doesn't mean that you get less done if you start out the day doing your music instead, you know. I think we might also end up being more effective if we have a little less time on that, you know, because you spent 3 hours making music and you have 4 hours, 5 hours only for the other stuff. Maybe you would be a little bit more effective on that, you know, because it's so easy to just, you know, it's also, I mean, it's also when you think about, you know, we're working on this, we have this screen in front of us, and you could go everywhere on that. You could have all the things you need, you know.
There are a lot of distractions.
So you are distracted all the time, and if you have the whole day, you will be there all day with all the distractions, and you know.
Yeah.
So again, starting out, you know, when you're fresh in the morning, like, okay, I'm gonna sit by the piano, or I'm gonna sing, or I'm gonna play my instruments, and then I can do all the other stuff.
I like your advice.
Yeah,
it makes a lot of things fall into place, I think.
Yeah.
I
because
think you staying connected. You remember what is important.
I think, that's the thing, you know, you need to be in connection with that, because it's so easy to be distracted in all kinds of ways, you know. And you probably know that feeling of kind of, you're stressed, but you can't really grasp it, and you've spent the whole day in front of this, you know. I think also as human beings, you know, this medium, the computer, is such a new thing, you know. It's crazy to think about that we live our lives in front of this, you know, and we might believe, you know, that it is a substitute for, let's say also social contact, you know, and it is not. And I think, you know, sometimes I've been in front of my computer and I can think, shit, I've been spending my whole day and I've been communicating with maybe 20 different people. I haven't seen any faces. I haven't looked into people's eyes. I haven't heard a voice. I have not seen body language. It's only been black and white on my mail, you know. And I have this mental idea that I've been communicating with all these people. And I think my brain it's a really hard thing for our systems to cope with, because, you know, there's nothing there to kind of, you know, and only that, you know, to be in touch with your physicality through your music. And I think it's we're underestimating it, also the importance of it, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
think this is why these times are also quite difficult with the pandemic, because you're so disconnected from the world, and especially as a touring artist, you are used to meeting a lot of people on the road and always be social, and then it's taken away from you, and you kind of lose your element. So I feel sometimes like a fish out of the water. You know what I mean? Like trying to breathe. But I can't, because I'm not doing my thing. My thing is to perform. And I mean, I love playing at home. I love practicing. I love recording. But there's nothing to replace the feeling of performing and communicating a message to an audience. And I miss that a lot. Yeah, I wish it will be back very soon.
Absolutely.
And traveling, of course.
Yes, it is.
Because it opens your mind.
It does, and it is hard times, and it's so. What we do is so. It's such. It's so based on sharing and being together. It's hard times to be cut off from that. Absolutely. So I think we have to find ways of. I mean, we are already working on it, of course, but I think when I think about winter coming now and dark times, at least up here in Scandinavia, and to think about going into another phase of social distancing, and if this is happening again, another wave, we have to really be aware of how can we interact socially as much as possible, Okay, we have to. Okay, so we have to invite each other and wear masks and be a meter away from each other. But we have to really open up, I think, and make it as easy as possible for each other to interact and to be social together. Because I think we need to see that as first aid in this, we need this to it's a life-saving thing, and I think maybe also something good can come out of it, because we have been living in a time where we are always again filtering ourselves, it's almost like it feels like you're intruding someone if you're just knocking their door without calling and preparing them first that you might come, or so and also this thing with being social is almost also on some kind of level, it's gone that far that it's linked to some way of performance. You have to tidy your place, you have to make fancy blah 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 food, or you have to when you're going to visit someone, you have to be be an interesting person, and it's not about that, it's about we are flock, we are herd animals. we need to be around each other, we don't have to be something, we just have to realize that we also just need to be around each other, maybe doing nothing, saying nothing, but just being in the same rooms, and I think maybe this can make us come back to that in a way, if we really see the importance of that, and that we just have to make it easier for each other to step over to the doorstep, put your morning robe on and come and have a coffee, we don't have to speak, just come and sit with me, but also showing each other vulnerable like that, that we just need each other. We have to let each other know that,
Yeah, I agree. We have to find ways to socialize again. Yeah. Well, thanks for a great talk. Well, this was the serious part of the interview. And at the end, I always ask my guests a series of questions, a bit more personal, taken from the Bernard Pivot questionnaire. And the idea is that you will respond with the first thing that comes to mind, but feel free to also think it through if you need to.
Okay.
So the first question is, what is your favorite word?
Snow. That was the first word that came to my mind.
Really? Tell me why.
Well,
when I was a kid, I thought snow was a magical thing.
Yeah. Well, no.
Snow. So
What is my favorite word? It depends, because it's both the sound of the word itself. It's also what it means. It's also what feelings I connect to it. And I don't know. I think there's something about, because to me snow, it could also be something I really dread. But it's something about the safety of it, the feeling of it from my childhood. The joy of this pure, fresh, white material, that would just make everything new. And maybe there's something about that, new beginnings, or new, the changing of landscapes, or, blank pages, or there's something about
black pages.
Blank pages, yeah.
A blank page.
Yeah.
Tabula rasa.
Yeah.
So what's your least favorite word?
Well, I've never thought about any least favorite word, because, words can mean so much. So I never thought that, there was any word that I didn't like.
Yeah.
It's more about, how you interpret the word. But I think, words that has to do with not being open, to be prejudiced, or, being locked, or being so, but it's hard to connect it to a word, because a word lock could also be something that could be opened. So what's your least favorite word?
No.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can relate.
I think my favorite word is freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe no. Actually, I would rectify my answer to not no, but impossible. I don't like it when people say this is impossible. Didn't even think about it. Take a moment to contemplate how you can do it. Don't tell me immediately that it's impossible.
I very much relate to that. Of course, freedom and or possible or impossible.
Yeah,
that's two words that go. I definitely goes as favorite and least favorite to me as well.
Yeah. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Oh, that's a lot of things. But again, curiosity, being experiencing something for the first time. And that gets rarer and rarer as older you get, But to try to find those places where you can actually experience something for the first time. And that also has a lot to do with your state of mind, like we were talking about earlier. And I think, these places where you can't really categorize what's happening, because it's so easy for us when we experience things, when we sense things, that we immediately just puts it in our system, and we think, oh, this is a flower, done with that, no magic. This is a rose. This is this kind of thing, and then you stop reflecting about it, But I've had some purely magical moments where I just sensed things, just very direct and very kind of, the pure existence of sound or a shape and just sensing it without the name of it, without, just, and that's
just being,
and that's like pure existence. And that's maybe where I'm most inspired. And that's moments you can't grasp. You can't hold them. It's just there, and then it's gone again,
do you meditate?
Yes, I do, but not enough. I wish I did it more. But I find, other. I walk almost every day in nature. I go swimming all year in the fjord, you know. I
Really? Isn't it cold?
Yes, I do. And for me that's meditation. That's where I you know, my system is really open to feeling connected to my surroundings, or feeling that I belong, or feeling, you know, and it takes me out of my everyday stream of thoughts, you know. But I think, again, you know, coming like in music, for example, I've been very inspired by birds, for example, birds singing, and to search, for example, now this is very concrete, but you know, to search for that place where you can't really hear if I'm making a sound. Is this singing, or is it an animal sound, or is this language, or is it a sound, or this place where you, as a listener, you can't immediately just say, okay, it's this, and then your brain just kind of puts it in that drawer, you know. To for example, for me, Meredith Monk has been a huge inspiration, and she has these places maybe where you're just in between language and an abstract sound, or birds, or animal sounds, or singing, or speaking, or melodies, or, you know.
Yeah,
it's interesting to, I mean, when I speak now, there's, of course, there's melodies, but you don't hear it because you hear my language. That's how your brain hears it instead, you know. And
sure.
I find it very inspiring if you can put yourself in states of minds where you're open like that.
Nice. What turns you off?
Well, again, it's all connected to what I said earlier. I think, you know, it turns me off when people are not curious, open.
Yeah.
When there are fixed ideas about how things are going to be.
Yeah.
As a musician, I'm turned off if someone has a very clear idea about what I'm supposed to sound like. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I would say no, thank you. Again, it's about, like you say, you know, impossible, possible, or what's the opposite word of curiosity? Is there a word for
boredom?
that? Yeah,
I don't know.
Just, you know.
Yeah.
That turns me off.
Apathy. I would say.
Yeah. Or too narrow ideas, you know, of how
narrow-minded.
Narrow-mindedness and too fixed ideas about how the world is turning, you know. Yeah.
What's your favorite curse word?
I very seldom curse, actually. I almost never curse.
Yeah. You don't have a favorite curse word?
No, I don't actually. Do you? Do you?
Well, actually, I have. It's not really a curse word. I use the word Jesus a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
but I'm Jewish, so it's kind of funny. Like when people hear me say Jesus, it's like, what did you say?
Yeah, I think in English I just say shit a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And in Norwegian I would, you know. Yeah, it's a very, I don't know. I'm not so juicy when it comes to curse words. Unfortunately, I would say I would.
But maybe teach me a curse word in Norwegian.
Oh no, I'm more kind of my curse words are not really curse words. They are more innocent. So I would say like fy fillan, or I would just say
What's that? Fifila? What does that mean?
No, it's very innocent. You know, it's just something you say when you're pissed off.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a meaning.
It doesn't really mean anything.
Oh, it's just a sound. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite sound? What's your favorite sound or noise?
That I would make myself, or that someone else would
Anything. Both.
A sound or an expression or a sound from anywhere.
Anything, a sound or a noise that you love, and you hear this and you think like, oh, I like that.
I love the sound of waves. Not
Birds
so
and
original,
waves.
but birds and waves, yeah. And laughter and moaning and, moaning out
nice.
of joy.
Yes.
or pleasure,
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
And do you have a sound that you hate?
Well, I hate chainsaws, the sounds from machines that cuts. That also I really don't like the sound of lawn mowers. I think about all the grass, flowers, and small insects and stuff. That's just kind of But I guess my least favorite sounds are like connected to machines that destroys nature.
Yeah. In Dutch, you have this expression, steek je hoofd niet uit de maaiveld, which means don't stick your head out of the mowing field because they're going to get cut off.
Yeah.
So that basically means people try to put you in a box, like this is like, you don't raise your head because they're going to shut you up. Yeah. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Ooh. Well, when I was dancing a lot when I was younger. So when I was 16, I kind of stood choosing between dance or music. Acting was also something I was very much into. But then also, when I thought about it, it was very obvious thing for me to choose music. So that's what I did, and I'm very happy about that. But also to me, it's been thinking about how I wanted to live my life and spend my life was connected a lot to meeting new people and traveling and learning about different cultures and music is a great way to do that because it's maybe the only language we have where barriers are not obstacles, it's just or it's just it can meeting people from different musical cultures has to me been so rewarding and inspiring and you start making music and you instantly communicate, but I was thinking a lot about being actually a nature photographer or also marine biologist because I was always very fascinated about life.
That's
in the
fun.
ocean. Yeah, so that was a dream for many years to just explore
nice
the underwater
and
worlds.
What profession would you not like to attempt?
I would not be a banker or a real estate
or an accountant.
What's it called? Accountant or a bodybuilder?
Bodybuilder. Is that a profession?
I think for someone, yes, it is.
Wow.
No.
I wouldn't be a politician. That sounds horrible to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so my last question is actually my favorite question, and that's if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you enter the gates?
You really lived.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
You had a good one.
You really lived to the max.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking, thanks for taking life and really exploring it in every angle.
Great answer. I like it. I had one of my guests was saying that she wants God to say, "This is the beginning of another life."
Oh,
which is so ambitious to me. I was like, yeah, I want to hear. Now you can rest. It's such a difference of experience, I guess, with how you take life.
Yeah. I think to me, both the life both life's joys and life's challenges and pains and sorrow, that we just dared to kind of give into it, to explore both the dark and the good, and that having the perfect life doesn't necessarily mean to have gone through it smiling all the time, and but to know that you fully, you embraced it, it all, that life that you were given, and that you know that you have spent it, well, and that has to me, and that has to me, it's very connected to then emotions, it's also, of course, about what you experienced and what the people you met and your travels, but it's also about having explored your inner life, and not being afraid also of also going into the darker places, not putting walls, and not putting
not blocking yourself,
not blocking it to be safe, just to dare to be unsafe.
Yeah. In these times, it gets an extra meaning even.
Yeah.
Thank you for a lovely conversation.
Thank you for having me.
It's been really nice talking to you.
Likewise.
Yeah. And I wish you a lot of, well, I wouldn't say success at the moment because we are difficult times, but I wish you a lot of good things to happen, even though the pandemic is kind of limiting and giving us some limitations at the moment. We have some really nice comments here, so maybe I'll read some of them out. So Orpheus Robinson, great musician himself, is saying, thank you, Noam and Sissel. This was a very enjoyable and informative session. We have Hildegun Oyseth is giving a lot of applause in her comments. And Alf Willem Lundberg is saying, thanks for a great conversation. I watched the entire session while playing the piano, while still listening, and sometimes disappearing fully into the music. Thanks for sharing your beautiful wisdom with us. Best. So with this beautiful notion, I bid you goodbye. Don't go anywhere because I'll let you in at the end. But in the meantime, thanks for being here, and see you very soon.
Thank you.
Good things for you. Yeah.
Likewise.
Thanks. So thank you so much for joining us today. As you know, Why DIY Music offers a scholarship for independent musicians. So if you are a musician and you want to launch your international career, but you do struggle to pay your tuition fee, please go to whydiymusic.com/scholarship and submit the application form, and maybe you will receive a full scholarship or a third or a half. We still don't know. It depends on the donations that we will get. All donations for this podcast will be used to educate young musicians. So if you do want to support us, please visit whydiymusic.com/donate and make your contribution, or send a direct PayPal transfer to paypal.me/Noam Vazana. Next week, I'm going to take 1 week off. I've been doing this for 4 months now, and we are celebrating our 4 months anniversary with this program. But the week after that, so please join me on September 24th. That's a Thursday in 2 weeks. Converse with Kenneth Keeleen, the artistic director of 12 Point Festival, and also the artistic director of Improvised Music Ireland. So thanks for being with us today. And in the meantime, good luck, keep calm, and DIY.